Now we know the tiny little magic we want to do. Let's go start doing it. First of all, we want to update the user's migration, which is already existing. If you go to your Laravel and click on database migrations, we see that we have a user's migration table already that came by default with our installation. Now let's update some things, some fields that we feel we might need. First of all, we need to update the name field to contain first name, middle name, and last name, assuming we need it. Another thing we could have is maybe a field to check whether the user profile is active. So let's start with that field. That field will be a tiny int table. I will call it an integer. Well, let me call it a string. String. So we're going to call it active. Status. So the status is going to have things like it's going to be nullable for any new user, and then we're going to put a default value in it, and that default value is going to be active. So here are other options it can have: inactive or disabled. That's another value this can have. So by default, when somebody logs in or creates an account, this status field is going to have active as its value. So now we need to know where this user is so that we can tag them to jobs close to them. So first of all, we need to know that this user is existing in table string. Alright, so we can say city. So we tag them to stuff that is happening within their city. We need this field to be nullable. Nullable means that if the user doesn't have a city, there won't be errors. Our database wouldn't throw errors. So we have city, and then we can duplicate it for state or province. And then we can do the same for country. So another option we could have is to create a country ID. For me, for now, I just want to have it as country. Alright? Okay, so of course, it's not the perfect way to design it. The perfect way to design is to create a special country table. Alright? And then you use country ID on this table. But I just want to do something very basic. So manually hand code the countries. Okay, so these are things we want to have. Another option we want to have is a certain kind of status. That status is going to tell us the user type. So we can say type or user role. I think I should call it role. So we're going to link it to a new table called role ID. And the role by default is 3 or 4. 4 will be a job seeker. You will see what I mean by that. From here, we just need a way to keep the user levels, like I explained to you. So we're going to have a table called roles. This roles is going to give us keep record of admin, user, whatever kind of users we have, moderators and employers and employees, okay, or job seekers. Okay, we're good. So the next thing we have to do is to create another migration for roles table. So to create a migration, you just simply go to your database and do PHP artisan make migration. Then you say create underscore roles table. Okay, now if you're wondering how I got to know this thing offhand, it's because I've typed it so many times. So it's not some black magic. I typed it so many times that I memorized it. But if you want to know how to do it yourself, you go to laravel.com and you select the docs. Click on docs on laravel.com. This is an unfortunate design because it's supposed to give me the topics here, but you have to click here. I don't know who designed this. This is not a good design at all. Click on documentations. and maybe it's because I'm zoomed in. So documentation, make sure it's set to 6.x. Okay, as you can see, set it to the current version that you're working with. So if we click on databases, we'll see that there's migrations, and then you will see all the instructions. Look at what I just did. PHP artisan make migration, create user table. Now what I usually advise people is, when I make a reference to a certain documentation in Laravel like this, just go to that page and read through. Read it like a novel, alright? Read through. It's very important. It's going to save you time going forward. Instead of you to get lost, you will have a mental picture of what is already available, alright? Otherwise, you will just keep getting lost and not knowing why you're lost, alright? So if you come down to this place, available column tables, you will see the column tables that I just did. You know what, I just created this and it looks like magic. This is where I'm getting it. You see column types. This is one for dates, for created at. This is one for decimals, double, enum, float, geometry, positions, So it's very important that you scan through this page, read through, so you see what's available, right? Now we're good. Now we're very good. We could just make reference back to here and click enter. So once it's created, okay, the roles table has been created, and now we can go to our migrations table. As you can see, a new file has been created, and if we click on it, that is the roles table. So first of all, to create a role, all we need in the roles table is the table name, string, the field name, which is role, and that is basically all we need for now. Alright, that's basically all we need. So for every user that is going to be created, we're going to assign a default role ID to the user. Now we are going to only have 4 roles. The first role name, let me name it. The first role will be admin, second one will be moderator, third one will be employer, and the fourth one will be seeker, job seeker. Alright, cool. Now we can do for another table that we are going to call, let's go check our table diagram and choose the next table to create. Skills is a little tricky, so let's create a skills table. Alright, so we're gonna do PHP artisan migrate skills. Remember that the tables must be plural and all small letter. Now, just for ease of search, just in case we run into a situation where we want to simplify our search, okay, we could do some manipulations, which I usually do. I usually do them in my designs. So here we're just going to create table. I am in the users now, right? I'm in the users migration file, create table, and put it string and say and call it skills. I think instead of string, I'm going to use a long text. As usual, you can always find the kind of fields you can use in that migration documentation in Laravel. So long text, I'm going to make it nullable. Now I'll tell you the reason why I did this. Even though we're going to use database relationships and all to pull the skills that each user has, one little search trick we can do is to actually list the titles of each skills directly on the users table, so that if we run into a situation where we just want to pick a user and automatically have a list of their skills without having to query another table or chain our database queries, like do multiple joins, we can have them here. All right, but I'm just going to keep this, and maybe we'll never use it, but let it be here for now. Okay, so we now have skills. What do we need? We need the skill name or skill title. The skill name could be PHP, so I'm going to do table. This skill has to have a string. Okay, the string will be name of the skill, okay, which could be example PHP or HTML or whatever. Then we can have another table that says who owns this skill, so we can do integer, so that we can add the user ID of the user that owns the skill. Beautiful. Now another thing we can do is to do table. What is when did you start learning this skill, like skill start date, I'm saying, or years of experience. So if we know when this user started learning the skill, we can automatically calculate the years of experience they have had. Okay, a good way to do that is to call it a date. All right, we can do start date of the skill. Start date. So I just want it to be a year. I don't need a certain date. I don't think I need a certain date per se. I just need a year. So let's go to that Laravel documentation and look through the migrations column and look for something that has to do with that's available columns, something that has to do with date. So there's a date time. No, we don't need date time z decimal. Let's see if there's something that has to do with year. Long text, morphs, polygon sets, soft deletes, okay, string, time, timestamp z, tiny increments. Okay, and that's it. Yeah, there's a year here. This is beautiful. All right, this is beautiful. So we just need to know the year you started with this skill. So if you have 1 year's training, we just want to know. All right. So in your own design, you could leave it at date so that the person can specify month and whatever, so you can know how many months experience this person has. Okay. Now we need description table. We need to know more things like long text, list of companies you have worked with on this skill, past employment on this skill. I think that's what I can call it. Which other better name can we call this? You should suggest to me which other better name. We basically want to know, give us a history of your skill, of your journey with this skill. All right. I can call it a history, past employment history, past employment history on this skill, whatever. Just call it whatever you want, but we want it to be nullable, and then we can create any other info, but we want this to be nullable first. I don't know why my system is coming out with all this funny nullable. So when creating migrations, you should always be careful with the ones that need to be nullable. Any other information. Okay. Start dates. Okay. Start past employment history on this skill. Employment history. Work. I think instead of employment, let's call it work history. Past work history on this skill. Then we can have any other information. Okay. Nullable. Cool. And remember that we must always have soft deletes. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we have soft deletes. Soft deletes. We're good. All right. So in the next video, we're going to create more migrations until we are able to complete all these tables we created here. So far, we have 1, 2, and so on. Okay. So one funny thing and cool thing we can have under skills is we would want the user to tell us their skill level. Alright, a skill level has to be in 3: beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Alright, okay, so we're going to have a skill level that's going to be simply maybe integer. So we're going to say integer skill level. Okay, now another thing is that we can have a situation tomorrow that an admin can interview this person, and this person must have passed this skill in an interview. So skill level is going to be an integer. So first of all, it should be nullable. Sometimes it's redundant to put nullable and default at the same time, but to be on the safe side, we have default. The default should be beginner, which is basically 1. So we'll have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Okay, I think we should make it integer. Beginner. We'll call this string. So it should be, let me pull this to this side. Beginner. Okay, usually I put comments so I can remember. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. Okay, beautiful. So we can check if this guy has been interviewed. So we can have interview date. Alright, admin interview date. So that's going to be the date time. So here we can have dates time, and we call it admin interview date. Okay, let's say admin interview. So with this field, if admin has interviewed this person, we can see it. So we can see admin score. Okay, admin skill level, admin score. Okay. Okay, admin. Oops. We can have a string. Admin score. Over 10. Let's say admin score is gonna be a string. Okay, that is nullable, but the default is let's not put a default, just null at the beginning. So if there's a number there, so it will start from 0, 1 to, let's say, between 0 to 10. So when admin interviews this individual, they are going to give them a score, and that score will range between 0 to 10. Alright, for this particular skill. And not just admin, we can say interviewer. Alright, so we can hire interviewers. We need to know who interviewed this person. So we're going to have something like this. That's the integer admin user ID. So we need to know the admin, that the user ID. Okay, so this is going to be nullable too. Nullable. Even this admin, this other one is going to be nullable. Admin interview nullable. Okay. Nullable soft deletes. Need to put soft delete at the bottom. Okay, so admin has given a score, which is cool. So we can have interview requested table string interview requested. So as you may have noticed, I'm using strings instead of numbers. That's something I've learned over the years to save me time. So instead of pulling down a number from my code and deciding what the number is and stuff like that, I'm just gonna pull down a string. So if interview has been requested, it's gonna be the default is gonna be no, not yet. Okay. The other answer is gonna be yes. Instead of 1 and 0, interview requested. Okay. Is interview requested? I think that's gonna be interview status, not requested. I think that's better. That's much better. Having interview status. Requested, not requested. So there's gonna be requested and passed. So we have admin interview. So finally we have, okay, I think this makes sense so far, not requested. So a user signs up and then requests for an interview on a specific skill. Admin shows up, interviews the person on Skype or whatever. When the person passes, admin updates this field saying that the interview was passed and whatever. And finally, this field of requested will change, okay, to passed. Then there's going to be a score. All right. Okay, so we can say interview amount, just so that we can know how much this person paid for the interview if we're going to monetize it that way. So we can say interview amount is going to be on the, sorry that this video is taking longer, I just want to get everything about skills over. It's going to be under somewhere at the top here. You see double is what you use to keep any money that has to do with decimals, any number that has to do with decimals. You can use float or double, so I prefer to use double. Okay, so I'm going to remove one of this. Double amount, I'm going to call it interview amount. Interview amount. Interview amount paid. This is beautiful. So we will know interview amount paid. Cool. So we can know how much this guy paid for this interview. All right. So cool. Now, what else are we supposed to know? Okay, it's gonna be nullable. It's gonna be nullable in case they didn't have to pay any money. Cool. So see you in the next video where we go for another skill level. At least now you get an idea of what our app will look like in the end.